To a story today. It goes like this. On the ground there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit on or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. Wait a minute, sorry, not that story. Although it is my favorite and one of literature's most famous opening lines. Today's story will be a PaperCut knowledge base article. You know, I always talk about the knowledge base. www.papercut.com/KB. And I quote from there quite often. Today's knowledge base article is so well written that I'm going to read it to you so you don't have to. And we'll have some fun along the way. I'm Doc Balchi, subject matter expert for ACDI. With me again is Dave Byer, lead solution architect for ACDI, and he'll be answering chat and Q&A during this session, and we'll open up his mic for live Q&A with me immediately following. Of course, we'll have a trivia question and your chance to win a very cool ACDI t-shirt or polo by being the first to answer correctly. The answer's kind of hidden today, so pay attention. And if you want to read along, then just look up the knowledge base article entitled Mobility Print Deployment Options. Here we go. John, who is an office manager in charge of a small company network. Users connect to a single subnet with their own devices and use Google as their DNS server. The issue that John has is that he has no control over the DNS server entries or the ability to configure shared print queues on the user's machines as they are not members of the local workgroup. John wants to provide his users with the ability to print in the office, but wants to be able to track the print jobs. He decides to implement PaperCut into his office environment to achieve this solution. As the users want to be able to use their computers, tablets, and mobile devices for printing, he decides that mobility print could be the solution he needs. He is running a single subnet. John configures the PaperCut mobility server to run through MDNS. This allows all users connecting to the local network the ability to find the advertised printer in the office. John uses internal users in PaperCut to create the user accounts and assigns each user a username and password for printing. He can now accurately report on the printing conducted in the office and ensure that the correct user is charged for the costs related to their printing. We have Mel, who is an IT administrator at a small medium company that works out of a single site. Mel manages a range of servers, including an internal DNS server and multiple subnets through her network switches. The issue is that Mel wants to be able to provide all users within the company to be able to use her new PaperCut mobility print solution on both the work computers and BYOD hardware. The problem is that Mel is not sure how she can configure the network to allow this to occur. Well, there are a couple of different ways in which mobility print can be implemented into these scenarios. Mel has the option of deploying via MDNS or DNS SD. Which option she chooses is dependent on how she wants to manage the system and what her infrastructure supports. MDNS. If she chooses to deploy with MDNS, then the network switches would need to be able to support the ability to apply DNS reflectors. A DNS reflector will allow an MDNS request to be reflected from one subnet to another. SD. If this option is chosen, then the internal DNS server would be configured with the relevant mobility DNS entries to allow internal clients to be able to find the mobility print server. Note, reverse DNS entries will be required in this scenario if they are supporting iOS devices or have a .local domain for their internal DNS resolution. In this scenario, we have Julie, a systems administrator in charge of the IT services for a company with a single domain, a search domain, but multiple sites connected via VPN. Site has a single subnet, client computers, and printers. Site 1 also houses the company servers in the server room. Julie has recently purchased PaperCut MF and would like to provide all three sites with the ability to use the mobility print solution. As a new PaperCut user, she is unsure how to accomplish this in her environment. She has three potential ways in which she can implement the mobility print solution within her environment. Option 1. Julie could install the primary PaperCut installation and mobility print solution on her print server at Site 1. Then, using DNS-SD, she would be able to configure her DNS servers to advertise the mobility print server at Site 1 to all users in her network. It would also be possible to apply subnet filtering in order to limit which printers could be viewed at each site. The benefit of this solution is Julie can allow all users in her network to be able to find the local printers to their site through a single print server. The print server can be located in the server room at Site 1. There is a single print server to be maintained, and the drawbacks from this solution include all print jobs will be sent across the VPN link to Site 1. When the job is printed, the job will be sent back across the link to the printer on site. Potential single point of failure, and that would be assuming PaperCut application server is not configured in a high availability environment. Here, Julie would be set up a print server at each site. She would then configure the mobility print solution on each server, configure her DNS servers to advertise all three mobility print servers in her network, and set each mobility print server to only advertise the printers locally for the site the server resides in via subnet filtering. Option builds upon the first solution by now allowing Julie to keep the print jobs local to the site in which the printers reside. To include, print jobs are printed to the local print server, thus reducing VPN traffic. Multiple print servers are being used on the network to spread the print traffic and avoid a single point of failure for domain printing. Drawbacks: a print server would be required to be configured at each site, and there would be multiple subnet filtering config files to set up. That would be one per server. The other solution Julie could investigate would be to run a print server at each site and implement MDNS. Upon installation, the mobility print server is configured to use MDNS and automatically advertises the printers on the server to the local subnet. Benefits: easiest setup procedure. Configure a print server on site and install mobility print. No DNS server configurations required. No subnet filtering configuration files to configure. Print jobs are kept local to the site in which they're printed. Drawbacks: a print server would be required to be configured at each site, limited to advertising the local site printers only. There's no way to allow printers from the other sites to be shown cross-site via mobility print if required. Has been called in as a contractor to design and implement PaperCut and mobility print into a customer's single domain, multi-site environment. He's having some issues determining the best way to deploy PaperCut mobility print, as each site has a separate subnet, but the Wi-Fi network subnet extends across all three sites. Therefore, any Wi-Fi users will obtain a 10.50 IP address across all three sites. The solution that Michael employs would be determined by if Michael wanted the mobility print queues to be searchable by each of the local subnets or just to be available for the Wi-Fi clients. If Michael only wanted the Wi-Fi clients to be able to use the mobility print solution, then he has three options. Install a single mobility print server at one of the sites on the 10.50 subnet and use MDNS. The result of this would be that all users in the 10.50 subnet would be able to find the print queues advertised by this print server. When a user prints at any site, their job would be sent to this mobility print server. The recommendation for this option would be to advertise a single Find Me print queue to the end users and allow all printers in the network the ability to release the print jobs. This will then ensure that print jobs can be released at all sites by all users, and jobs do not get lost between sites. Install multiple mobility print servers, that's one per site, on the 10.50 subnet, and use MDNS to advertise the print queues. Again, it would be recommended to use Find Me print queues, with all printers being allowed to release jobs from these queues at all sites. Benefit with this solution, however, would be that when a user selects the printer to print their job to, they could choose the local server name queue to attempt to keep jobs on site. Queue is advertised as //server name /print queue _name. Server name could identify the site at which it resides, like Site 1, print server /find me. Site 2, print server find me. Site 3, print server find me. Alternatively, Michael could use DNS SD to advertise either a single or multiple print servers. This would then work the same as MDNS for users to find their print queues. Michael wanted to be able to advertise the mobility print queues to both the Wi-Fi and the local subnets. Then he would need to use DNS SD. Using DNS SD would allow subnet filtering to be applied to the local subnets for restricting advertised queues, but there is no way to filter the advertised print queues to the Wi-Fi clients. Therefore, Michael should recommend that users print to the local print server when choosing their print queue to attempt to keep their jobs on site. He would also need to look at a Find Me print queue and allow all printers in the network to be able to release the print jobs from each mobility print queue. This will then ensure that print jobs can be released between sites in the event that a job is sent to another site. For all listed solutions mentioned, a good VPN connection is recommended for these scenarios to ensure that jobs can be processed between sites quickly and effectively to prevent delays in print jobs being released. Undergoing a number of changes. They have recently expanded and purchased another company to enhance their current capabilities. Has therefore had to create a new domain within the company. Depending on a user's role for devices, they could be joined to either one of the domains in the Active Directory forest. Meta would like to ensure that users in both domains are able to access the PaperCut mobility print solution. Different options available for him for the setup and configuration of the PaperCut mobility print solution. These options include the following: MDNS. If the company is using a single subnet, then Mel could look at using PaperCut mobility print in MDNS mode. This then advertise the printers to all users within the subnet, regardless of which domain they are a member of. Multiple subnets, Mel could look at using DNS reflectors to advertise the mobility print queues across all subnets in the network. While this is a possible solution, depending on the number of computers and network traffic, this could get quite loud on the network. DNS SD is most likely the best solution for Mel would be to implement DNS SD. Configure the DNS records under both of his listed domains. During the configuration process in the mobility print server, Mel can specify both of his search domains and his multiple subnets. If using Windows DNS, Mel can then use the commands provided by the configuration process to run the required commands on the DNS server to configure both domains with the required entries to advertise the mobility print server to every domain and user in the network. Has been asked by his manager to investigate how to provide mobile printing solutions to all users within the company. The company is already using PaperCut for their printing needs across multiple sites and domains. Each site runs a print server, which advertises the printers for that site to their Windows desktop users. Therefore, has been investigating the PaperCut mobility print as a possible solution to their needs. Each site has a single subnet associated with the site. There are a couple of options Alfredo has for providing the mobility printing solution to the end users. These include MDNS. As each site already has a print server which lists the local printers for that site, one option for Alfredo would be to install the PaperCut Mobility Print application on each print server. He could then configure the software to use MDNS to advertise the printers. As a result, the printers for the local site would then be advertised to all users at that location. SD. If Alfredo wanted all printers to be available to all users, regardless of the site that they're located at, then he could use DNS SD to advertise the mobility print servers across all sites and domains. To ensure that entries are put into his DNS servers for each domain to allow users in every domain to locate the print servers correctly. He would also have the ability to configure Subnet filtering in order to restrict the advertised printers if he wanted at each site. Is an IT manager at a single site company, small company, that has separated their network into multiple subnets for easier management of their guests, internal staff, and resources. This site does not run a DNS server, but Maria wants to provide printing options for all users within her company. Considered using DNS reflectors, but as a small company, there is no internal network administrators, and the company does not want to pay for an external party to reconfigure their network switches to use DNS reflectors. Maria decides that she will implement her PaperCut server with multiple network cards installed into it. She will then connect her PaperCut server to each subnet that she wants to provide printing services to and configure the system to use MDNS. The result is that the PaperCut application server will broadcast the printers via all three NICs to advertise printing services to all three subnets. With PaperCut handling these print requests, it will redirect jobs to the printer on the correct subnet to allow print release. Is an IT manager for a company called My Shared Space. Rents out office space in a building and provides a co-working environment. Each company working in the building requires access to the printing services offered by My Shared Space and obtains their internet access in different ways. David wants to provide all users in the building access to the printing facilities, but needs to be able to accurately track and charge users for their printing costs. The solution for deployment of the PaperCut servers and mobility print can be complex in these environments. Requires a strong understanding of the services offered, network configurations, VLANs, firewalls, etc. Scenarios may include Wi-Fi network used by all customers provided by My Shared Space. Each customer provided with their own VLAN or subnet on the network, but DNS and DHCP is managed by My Shared Space. Each customer provided with their own VLAN and run their own network behind a firewall. A customer may rent the space only, the office space, but have their own internet connection to the offices with no connection to My Shared Space's network. To the complexity of these scenarios, we recommend contacting us at ACDI. Just send an email to presale.support@acd-inc.com to discuss your needs and how best to set up the PaperCut mobility print in your environment. Once again, that's presale.support@acd-inc.com. Include our story time, as that's all the info in the KB, and I'd like to take a moment to expand on our knowledge by discussing one other option that's available when deploying mobility print, and that's the discovery of devices with a known host. Of advantages to using this procedure, and the great news is there's a knowledge base article that's clickable. Simply tell this tool what you have, and it will help guide you to the best solution. This is in the Mobility Print Help Center under How It Works, Printer Discovery, which method is best for you. Take a look at all three methods in a little more detail. Here are best practice for installing MDNS. MDNS is a local subnet protocol, also known as Bonjour, Zero Config, or RFC 6762 to its friends. Same protocol that iTunes uses to find your iPhone or your Apple TV. This is the easiest option to get Mobility Print up and running, whether that's to deploy immediately to your users or to try out Mobility Print for the first time. By default, MDNS broadcasting occurs across only one subnet, although it is possible to extend MDNS across subnets using MDNS reflectors or bonjour gateways and other methods too. We recommend rather to use one of the other mobility print discovery methods for these multi-subnet environments, and we'll look at those next. MDNS is an open standard and uses UDP broadcasting. Shared printer information is broadcast and encoded in the MDNS packets. On to best practice for DNS SD discovery. SD is for service discovery, also known as hierarchical decentralized naming system for computers and services. I mean, really, you try to say that. It's an alternative to MDNS. And in short, the published printers are encoded in DNS records. DNS uses an existing DNS infrastructure to transmit printer information. This information is broadcast and encoded with the DNS SD standard. Mobility Print Server has a mini embedded DNS server. You need to configure your local DNS server to forward printer discovery requests to the Mobility Print Server's embedded DNS. Forwarding is achieved using a method called subzones or delegated subzones. New printers, no local DNS configuration is required. It's all automatic and delegated to the Mobility Print Server. Known host best practice. Use the known host method of printer discovery in environments with multiple subnets that you don't have a DNS server, or in environments with complex firewalls that might make it too hard for you to get Mobility Print up and running. Discovery with a known host is easy to set up and works equally well in both simple and complex environments. Please note that for Chromebooks, this will work with managed Chromebooks and not BYOD. Use MDNS if BYOD is the use case. Once webinar debuted the new Print Deploy feature of PaperCut, where print drivers automatically appear on end users' computers. And you might be thinking, how does this all fit in with Mobility Print? Of course, Print Deploy is for the more traditional print driver setups where you simply clone a driver from a reference computer into PaperCut, and then it gets distributed based on the IP address of the Windows or Mac computer. Book are coming. However, that still leaves Android and iOS devices. So let's expand on our knowledge with some configuration options using both features. Here's an example where you have a print server and all computers and devices connected to a local domain. Since all users are on workstations of some kind, Print Deploy will work seamlessly. Print Deploy comes with one zone, perfect for this type of environment. As discussed last month, a print enablement pack is required when the customer has multiple zones, and zones are based on an IP address schema. It could be floors of a building, different areas of an enterprise, or any other way you want to specify specific areas where people connect. So we have a print server with no local domain where you might find using Mobility Print to be the easiest way to have people connect to the devices. Mobility Print comes with PaperCut, no extra charge, so your options are huge for getting users connected and printing, all secure and tracked with full accounting. This example could be where computers are joined or not joined to a local domain, and you'd like to roll out serverless printing using a direct print model. Easy enough with Print Deploy, as authentication can take place in a non-domain environment just by using this feature in PaperCut. This could be a combination of all the above, so use a combination of PaperCut's Mobility Print and Print Deploy. Great for setting up shared office space and other places that have a lot of transient workers like contractors where you want them to print, but you don't want them on your network where your other resources and intellectual property reside. So many ways to take advantage of PaperCut in any environment. And of course, it just works. So you have the confidence in not only the software, but the support from ACDI as well. More, we are hearing about the need for cloud printing. And while printing itself is not quite necessarily cloud-friendly due to expanded file size with some programs, print management is ready for the cloud. PaperCut has been used for a number of years in private cloud configurations and has architectural advantages which naturally support cloud deployments. It is optimized for medium latency networks like web-based and web services applications, and only small metadata packets need to be sent to and from the PaperCut server. All the same features that are available on PaperCut will work. Of course, cloud printing is a constantly evolving technology, and I do encourage you to stay tuned to ACDI for all the latest developments, as more cloud news will be coming your way. We have it. Lots of when, where, and how to use mobility print, print deploy, and cloud printing. I hope you got some good pointers here. Please fill out the survey at the end to let us know what you think. This webinar was actually a direct result of things you've been asking for. So did you like it? How can we improve? We want to be better than yesterday, part of our mantra at ACDI. What are you interested in hearing about in future webinars, or perhaps maybe some other media even? I do read all the responses and appreciate you taking the time to help us help you. Live Q&A with Dave Byer and myself coming up right after the trivia question. You have to attend to chat and perhaps win a very cool ACDI t-shirt or polo. So thanks for joining. I'm the doctor for ACDI.